Hey friends, and happy Monday. I have a whole lot on my mind today, and so for this week I thought I would make a video for my weekly Monday Musings newsletter rather than type it all out. So here we go. Digital version of Monday Musings with me, Live Well Jax. Today is Monday, February 26th, 2024. There has been a whole lot happening, both here in a microclimate of our community and also in the macroclimate of the world. And it's all been weighing pretty heavy on my heart. So let's start with kind of the micro space here. For any of those of you that read last week's Monday Musing Takeover with Danielle, she gave an update about her health journey and where she is. I will link the video that she made to this video, so you can go back and watch that if you didn't have a chance to watch it. This year so far has been challenging, to say the least. Like, we are not even quite 2 months into 2024, and we've already had a lot of hurdles that we've had to kind of hop over as a business, and that led me to really kind of dig deep and think about where I want to take this business and the legacy that I am trying to build with this business as we are coming closer to, our 5th year anniversary of being here in downtown Camas. And for the entire 5 years that I've owned this business, actually I'll say about 4 years out of the 5 years that I've owned this business, I've had many people ask me why we aren't a nonprofit studio, because truthfully, we already operate very much like a nonprofit with our sliding scale rates and our financial assistance available with our memberships, and the way in which we engage with the community and the events that we're involved in, and what we're trying to build here. And when I've had people ask me in the past why we're not a nonprofit, the answer has always been kind of multifaceted. In one, I started a nonprofit in 2021, Eat Well Camas, and I know the work that it takes to get a nonprofit up and off the ground. The biggest part, or the biggest reason that I haven't transitioned Live Well Camas into a nonprofit up to this point is that ultimately that means that I lose decision making, sole decision making for what I'm trying to build here. And I didn't really feel like we had enough people that bought into our community, that had practiced with us for long enough, that really understood with what we were trying to build, and also had time to sit on a board with us to help guide us and steer this community in the right direction. And so I kind of resisted the idea of turning this into a nonprofit. Now, after surviving a global pandemic, after, my son's mental health crisis, after working through this cancer diagnosis for the last year, I have just really realized that in order for me to really create a lasting legacy with Live Well Camas, and to move it in the right direction, and to get the support that we need, and to be able to continue to operate in the way in which we want to operate, which is as an inclusive and accessible space for everyone, something really had to change. And after many conversations with Danielle, with my wisdom council, with other members of the community, it feels like now is the right time to transition into a nonprofit. So that's kind of our big news for this first quarter of 2024, is that we are putting together a board right now, and we will be transitioning into a nonprofit likely within the next month. We'll have that paperwork in. So what that'll look like is that we will have a board of directors that we, will be kind of the high level decision making and steering this community in the right space. Both Danielle and I are going to abstain from the board so that we can continue doing the things that we're doing and work in paid positions for the nonprofit. So that means that at the beginning, I will help get everything set up with the board as I transition everything out of my name as the sole owner of this space and into the nonprofit realm. The board will be made up of mostly community members with, at maximum, one of our teaching staff or one of our teachers on the board. Danielle and I will still sit in with board meetings to, help guide and all of those things and be involved. We just won't be on the board so that we can be paid employees of the nonprofit. So that is in the works right now, which we're really excited about. I think it's going to be a really good move. And I think it's really going to accomplish the legacy that I'm trying to create with this space so that it can continue to live on, even if I choose to move on to something else at some point. I don't have that in the plans in any way right now, but you never know what life brings. That's really what the last year and a half has taught me, is that as much as you want to plan, as much as you want to be on top of everything, you just don't know what life is going to bring your way. And so rather than selling the business, rather than closing down the business, rather than me stepping back away from the business and letting it go entirely, I felt like turning it into a nonprofit is going to be the best way to continue forward with the mission. Ultimately, turning the studio into a nonprofit space will allow us to have a bigger impact in the community as a whole and be able to serve people that practice with us in this community in a deeper and better way. So, as much as the decision was difficult, I ultimately feel really good about it and am looking forward to moving forward in this way. Now, this won't actually affect our members in any way. Everything will feel the same from the front end user interface. It'll just be in how things operate from that high level decision making, and in the back end, how we organize and operate things. So ultimately, I think it's going to be a really great move and help us create something that, like I said, can have a bigger impact and a more lasting presence and legacy here in our little community. Over the weekend, yesterday, actually, today is Monday, so yesterday, Sunday, we learned that unfortunately a member of our community over the weekend, we learned that a member of our broader community, a young man, took his own life in his car at the park that is just down the street from our house. It's about a block and a half from my house. And my 15-year-old son was going for a walk yesterday, and when he was on his way back, he saw the commotion of the police cars and all of that. And it's just so sad to me that for this person's family, it's sad to me, that this person felt like there was no other out for them. I don't have any details on what's happening. I don't presume to know where they were coming from or why they did what they did. But I do want to acknowledge how things like this affect us as a community, whether we actually know this person in real life or not. And there are things like this that happen more often than we might want to acknowledge, or more often than we're even aware of in our communities. And so this is just a gentle reminder to you all that at the core of our yoga practice, it teaches us that we are inextricably bound to each other. And if members in our community are suffering, then we ourselves suffer. And we don't ever know what somebody is going through in their day-to-day lives. We only know as much as any one person is willing to share with us at any given time. So this is a gentle reminder from me to you to check in on those folks that you love the most, check in on those folks that are your neighbors, check in on those folks that you haven't heard from for a while. A call, a text, an email can go a really long way in letting somebody know that you notice them, that you care about them, and that you want them here for the long run. Yesterday, we also learned from a macro level of an Air Force officer who lit himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., as a form of protest to what is currently happening in Palestine. Now, oftentimes, I do my best to, well, actually all the time, I do my best to not really bring politics or discussions of religion into the studio space and into our business model. And I'd like to remind you all that the conversations about Palestine, while they are seeped in politics, are not in and of themselves political. They are about human rights and morality. Just like many of the conversations that we have about Black lives, about the BIPOC community, about the LGBTQIA2S+ community, they're all in that same vein of human rights and morality. And yoga has a really, strong blueprint for how we should show up in times like this, and how we should show up when it comes to social justice issues, human rights, morality issues like this. So everything that has been happening in Palestine has been weighing very, very heavily on my heart. And I haven't spoken about it a whole lot, but I am reminded that yoga ethics has a wonderful blueprint for how we should react to things like this, and that it really is important that we are continuing to share, to speak out, to let our government know that we don't condone what is happening. It may feel like one voice speaking about it isn't doing much, but the truth is, I'm only one voice, but if I speak out about it, and that affects somebody else and gives them the courage to speak out about it, that one voice has now become two, and two can become four, and four can become eight, and so on and so on and so on. And there really is power in the numbers. So if you are so inclined to speak out about these things, please do so. I'll remind you that we welcome brave and difficult conversations in our digital space here, but also in our physical space in the studio. There are no topics that are off limits in the studio space. We only request that conversations that happen do so in a respectful way, and do so in a way that allows every voice to be heard. So, as I said at the beginning of this video, there's so much happening at both a micro level and a macro level. It's really easy to feel overwhelmed very quickly. And I myself suffer from that often. I am getting ready next week to start a 6-week radiation regimen where I will have to go to the cancer center Monday through Friday every day for 6 weeks. And when I think about that, I get easily overwhelmed. And then I pile on top of that my relationships with my family. Final thoughts for this week. Life is really overwhelming. I think that more so now than ever before, there are so many things that are asking for us to constantly and consistently be distracted. YouTube videos like this, social media, the various news articles that we see, things that are happening in real life. There are so many ways for us to be distracted. So my question to myself each and every week is, how am I going to ground myself this week? What am I going to do and focus on to keep me here in the real world, not scrolling on my phone in doom scrolling land, not so distracted that I'm not continuously paying attention to what is happening and figuring out how I can contribute to make this world a better place and create lasting change, not only here in my micro community of the studio and this town that I live in, but also the region that I live in, the state that I live in, the country that I live in, and the world as a whole. Don't ever forget that we must be kinder than we think we need to be, because we never know what somebody is dealing with. What have you done that has been kind to you? What have you done this week? Or what will you do this week that will be kind and supportive to those that you care for the most? And how do you want to show up for your community as a whole? Until next time, stay healthy, happy, and glowing. Artie, Roscoe, and I are sending you so much love. Take good care.